final introductory session to Communities of Belonging. I'm sure we'll have an opportunity to introduce ourselves in a few minutes and have some Q&A time and interaction here and find out where everyone is from. But I also wanted to let you know that a couple of my colleagues are with us today from Public Health, including Diane and Hoa and Richard. But for the rest of you from our various communities around Carver County, we welcome you and thank you for your interest in this new initiative. We can go ahead and get started by just letting you know that throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, you can either put them in the chat box or raise your hand, and we'll certainly call on you and try to answer your questions. Or with a small group like this too, we'll certainly have opportunity to just interact with each other verbally before we're finished. We would ask you to please mute your microphones if you're not talking, because we are recording this session. In just a few minutes, we'll start recording. And then with that, we'll have a nice clear recording of everyone without any background noise as we conduct our follow-up that we usually get requests for at the end of these. And so with that, I'll just begin by letting you know that this Community of Belongings Initiative work is part of our 2020 to 2024 Carver County Community Health Improvement Plan. And this was developed following our community health assessment by our Public Health Advisory Council with members from throughout the Carver County community. And it is the community plan. The Carver County Public Health Department is just here to support the implementation of that plan. And in the case of this Communities of Belonging initiative, we're working to support participating communities as each one chooses to take on a journey together to create their own inclusive community of belonging for all. Hoa, could you advance the next slide, please? So again, just with a little background and to provide you a little bit more context, as you can see on this slide, the Public Health Advisory Council developed a vision statement for the Community Health Improvement Plan. And along with that, 4 rather broad priority issues, each one that has at least one goal. So we have a total of 10 goals in our Community Health Improvement Plan. And priority issue 1, as you can see stated here, has actually 3 goals for this priority. And one of them is targeted towards trying to meet everyone's needs for housing in our county. Another is targeted towards meeting everyone's transportation needs. And then the third goal in this priority is much broader. And this is our well-being goal that is stated here. Next slide, please. So when we talk about well-being, this term can be used, of course, or interpreted, I guess, or viewed very comprehensively for both individuals and for communities. And well-being includes fair opportunities and treatment in education and training and information sharing, in learning and employment, in childcare and in housing, recreation and food, law enforcement, transportation, and healthcare. It also includes actions around the ideas of respect and dignity and cultural expression and justice and much more. It includes social and emotional needs like a sense of purpose and safety and belonging, as well as social connections and life satisfaction. So as you can tell, it encompasses many of the conditions which can either support or detract from a person's opportunities to enjoy optimal health throughout their lives. Next slide, please. So then our community of belonging, to define what that means a little bit, it really is about welcoming all people at all times, no matter what their age, their gender, their race or ethnicity, their language, their faith traditions, their income, their occupation, their sexual orientation, their political ideology, their physical ability, or anything else that makes them the unique individual that they are. And while the term communities of belonging is still rather broad, our well-being committee had some robust conversations before landing at this place and looking at it as a frame for the creation of inclusive communities for all. And in recent years, you may have heard terms such as livable communities or sustainable or healthy communities, even resilient or restorative or vibrant or prosperous communities. And while our committee would not argue that these are necessarily all exactly the same thing, they would say that if approaching any of these initiatives is done with a viewpoint of exclusion, it is not going to be successful versus one that is focused around inclusion. Next slide, please. So again, community is a word that can be defined in many ways. It could be something as such as small geographically as a single school building or a single employer. It could be a place of worship. It could be a city or a region. Or it could be a group of people who may not necessarily be connected by a physical location, but rather by a shared culture. But for this initiative, after much discussion, the committee decided that, well, let's start viewing it geographically, perhaps as one of the 11 municipalities that are in Carver County. And a municipality includes local city government, but not necessarily only local city government, because of course our communities are much more than just our government agencies. It could also be a township that wants to undertake a local community of belonging initiative, or perhaps even two municipalities that consider themselves perhaps as sister cities. In other words, a community is rather self-defined, where people live, work, learn, play, or worship together. And it kind of comes down to what a person would respond to if you ask them, what community are you from? So we found that different communities may be ready to begin their community of belonging journey at different times. Some may begin their work with just two local sectors maybe being represented, and some may already have this type of work or some element of it already underway within their community. And it's even possible that it's multi-sector already. And while an inclusive community kind of implies that it is comprehensive and all-encompassing, it can certainly begin with a focus on a single issue or a specific population segment within a community. So the Community of Belonging Initiative may be able to amplify what communities are already doing. It is not intended to duplicate or replace or take over what may already be occurring within a community. This initiative is really intended for local residents and organizations that serve those residents who want to create an inclusive community for everyone who lives there now, as well as for those who may live there in the future. And the Well-Being Committee acknowledges that this type of focus may not necessarily be a current priority for all communities right now today. Next slide, please. So I'm sure that we would all agree that we're living in some very interesting times in many ways. Some of them are very exciting and positive, but we also are living with a lot of very challenging and rather negative implications for our communities as well. And many of these challenges have actually existed for a very long time. But in the last few years, a few major issues have brought these challenges to the very surface of our local, state, national, even global societies, such as the devastating impacts from climate change or civil unrest due to racial issues, and of course, COVID-19, all which have exacerbated and highlighted the challenges that are experienced in many facets of people's lives, which directly or indirectly impacts their health and well-being. However, out of every crisis, there is an opportunity if we can just recognize that opportunity and seize upon it. And in Carver County recently, we saw residents come together to volunteer to help support fellow residents who were isolated or unemployed as a result of the pandemic. Businesses and churches and individuals and law enforcement and community organizations all work together to create and provide emergency food boxes, for example. And that effort served more than 4,500 households and families and more than 16,000 individuals. And this successful pandemic-related effort showed what is possible in Carver County at the local community level. If we set aside our differences to work together to create communities of belonging that have their foundation rooted in the belief that the whole truly is greater than the sum of its parts. And so therefore the question really is whether we as individuals and we as communities are changing so that both individually and collectively, everyone can thrive. Next slide, please. So we are beginning to kind of focus or maybe refocus efforts around kind of the underlying conditions, or what we sometimes call the causes of many physical and mental health issues. It's a complex set of conditions, of course, that exist in our communities that really must be addressed before we can all attain and sustain the levels of population health that we desire for everyone in all of our communities. And the Well-Being Committee has looked at the work of what others have done around community of belongings as they were looking at shaping this initiative. So they looked at some work that a gentleman named Peter Block had done, where he mentions that real transformations is having residents who may be strangers up till now, having conversations that they are not used to having with each other, learning to trust each other, and deciding together how to make a community better for everyone. And they also looked at the work of Dr. Tony Eitan, who spoke to how creating a community of belonging involves changing any currently existing narrative around one of exclusion to one of inclusion. And a change in that narrative can lead to a change in policies or systems and practices. And these changes in turn can lead to changes in the conditions which support well-being for all. And finally, they looked at the work of Heather McGee, who talks about an idea she calls the solidarity dividend, which are the benefits that we all gain when people come together across our differences to accomplish what simply we cannot do on our own. And it can create a new vision for the future in which we finally realize that life is more than a zero-sum game, and that the zero-sum game mentality really is a fallacy. Next slide, please.
Hello?
So different communities involved in a local community of belonging initiative may have different needs in order to move forward because they are starting at different phases. Some may require a fair amount of engagement and conversation amongst community members in order to get started. And others may feel that they are at a point of action already to address conditions that they have already previously identified and discussed in conversations with their community members. But they also value ongoing engagement and trust building and leadership development and other key concepts as they continue to build their own community of belonging. As individual communities join this community of belonging initiative and begin their own collective journey towards a better tomorrow, the Community Health Improvement Well-Being Goal Action Committee and your Carver County Public Health Department and presumably other local community partners will work together to support each participating community with the resources they need over the next 2 to 3 years to build their own capacity and a solid foundation for the creation of their community of belonging. There are several organizations that have helped communities through a comprehensive process, as well as even some targeted services and trainings. In local communities, the work of the YMCA's Equity Innovation Center has done so in the communities of Hastings, Forest Lake, and Roseville, Minnesota. Another example is work that has been done through an organization called Marnita's Table that has worked for us in Carver County Public Health, the Eastern Carver County School District, and the city of Chaska in the past couple of years. We also have staff that have received training with an organization called Living Room Conversations in order to serve as one of their certified hosts. So these are just a few examples of some of the resources that we know we could access to provide support for a community that wants to journey down this path. If you're not familiar with any of these organizations' work, we can certainly explore opportunities for you to learn more about them. And in fact, the Marnitas Table is hosting a virtual event for Carver County next week on the evening of November 4th. So if you'd like to have more information about that, we can certainly follow up with all of you, and you can certainly just let us know that perhaps in the chat box as well, and we can get you more information about that event. Next slide, please. So I wanted to mention, as we get this initiative launched, that residents from the Cologne area have actually been the first local community in Carver County to join this initiative. And they have a small and very active leadership team, but also a much larger, ever-growing work group that they call it. And they welcome new members at any time. And we are helping them, for example, to begin their journey with an assessment. They wanted to check the pulse of their residents' current perceptions about Cologne as a welcoming, inclusive community. So that's one of the ways that we're beginning to help our first community in Carver County, that being Cologne. Again, as we kind of wrap up this presentation here, if you'd like to be a part of a community belonging in your community, please, again, just send us a message or speak up throughout our discussion here in a minute, and we'll follow up with you on the next steps. And obviously, we want to know which community you're interested in being a part of, or if it's more than one community, just let us know that as well. As I said, this is our third and final introductory session, so we already have names of individuals from at least 5 other communities in Carver County that would like to get involved in this initiative in their local community. So we will certainly make sure you all know who each other are within each of those communities, so we can begin that work together. Finally, then, I would just say that, throughout history, we have seen how finding common ground and having a shared vision that supports inclusivity is really foundational to the well-being of individuals and communities. And we build social capital by converting the isolation of our communities into the connectedness and caring for the whole. And we shift our conversations about the problems of our communities to the possibility of our community. A well-functioning society has always rested on this web of mutuality and a willingness amongst all the people in that community to share just enough with one another to accomplish what no one can do alone. And a culture of exclusion actually costs all of us as a society, but changing to a culture of inclusion can make us more successful and caring and really more powerful for everyone. And wouldn't it be nice to live in a place where we embraced our diversity as one of our superpowers? So with that as just kind of an introduction to Community of Belongings, we want to thank you for your interest and now open it up for questions that you may have. And so if you'd like to put those in the chat room, we can answer them. If you'd like to raise your hand and just ask your questions verbally, that's fine too, since we have a fairly small group. But I'll stop now and welcome your questions.
Hey, Pat, it's Courtney. I think I clicked on the wrong link and was unfortunately a few minutes late joining. I see that you're recording this. Will it be available and shared after the presentation?
Yes, it definitely will. All of you that are on the call here now will send out both the recording as well as a set of the slides to you.
Super, thank you.
Are there other questions from anyone? So it looks like Angie, you asked the question about next step. Is that what you were seeing, Hoa? Yeah, so Angie, you're asking about next steps. If you want to let us know which community you're looking to possibly do some of this work in, we will follow up with you and the other people from that same community and get in touch with you and start to outline those next steps. Do you have a community in mind right now?
Sure.
Sure.
I'm out of
I'm out of
Laconia.
Laconia.
Okay. We've had others from Laconia, so that's great.
Hey, Pat, it's Marshall here. I'm with the City of Chaska, Parks and Recreation Director. And first of all, just thank you for supporting this initiative with the county and all of your support in this area. You know, the City of Chaska is definitely interested in being in, you know, getting your continued support. You know, everything you've talked about is actually part of the strategic direction our city is moving in with our city council. And, you know, we're continuing to try to be a more welcoming and inclusive community in a variety of ways. And, you know, in Parks and Recreation, I like to think we're playing a significant role in building our community and providing opportunities for everyone. So can certainly connect with you on, you know, the things we're doing. And if we can be that much better with the support of the county, we'd love to look into that more.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Marshall. I know that as we've been working on putting this initiative together, we kept coming across different groups that were in one way or another trying to build a community of belonging. And we weren't sure how much that was coordinated or not. And like I said, this initiative is not intended to take over any of that work, but Chaska certainly was one of those communities where there's a lot of different groups and organizations and agencies that are doing this work. And we certainly had a number of other people who participated in our previous 2 introductory sessions who want to continue this work in Chaska. So we'll certainly work to bring you all together just in case you don't know each other or want to coordinate your work in a more integrated fashion.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting too to sort of stay informed of what other communities are working on. You know, we can be a little bit more broad in our approach. You know, I think that could be beneficial as well. You know, people navigate across all of our cities and communities. So I think that would be good to kind of understand what everybody's working on.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Marshall. I know I've had some people already ask about, tell me more about what Cologne is up to and what they're doing. And so we certainly want to make those opportunities available for you who are working in various communities to learn and share with each other. Karen, I know you're here from Norwood Young America. Great to have you here. Any particular questions you have?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just curious as to what Cologne is doing right now, or what kind of questions are on their survey. What are they doing?
Yeah, well, the survey is actually about to hit the mailboxes of their residents any day now. It'll probably be in the field for about 3 weeks. Hope to get a great response. They're actually doing a lot of work in the community to remind people to fill out the survey. And then, of course, so once they get the survey results, they'll analyze those and decide, okay, based upon what our residents told us, what's our next steps? But they are delighted to share that survey if it might be a model for other communities, or obviously you can tweak the questions to meet your own needs as well.
Can you
Pat,
share like?
Oh, go. I'm sorry, Karen. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so can you give an example of a question that they're asking?
Oh yeah. So for example, they're asking people things such as, if you feel like you belong in the community of Cologne, what type of things make you feel like you belong? And they gave them, like half a dozen different answers that they could check, and they could check all that apply, or there was a blank space and they could write in. On the flip side of that, they had a similar question in terms of, if you feel you do not belong, what are the things that make you feel like you do not belong? And again, getting at those issues that people have that maybe need to either be built up because people feel that these are assets in the community, or things that maybe are missing for them to feel like they belong.
And this is Richard. One of the things I just to share, one of the roles that Carver County Public Health is playing is, again, working with our community to support them in moving in the direction that will, empower them to address the issue of community belonging that's unique and important for them. And so one of the things that we are supporting Cologne is providing some financial support to coordinate the community assessment piece. And we are working with an organization that we worked with when we did our comprehensive adult community health a questionnaire survey a couple of years ago, which provided some foundational information that supported the Public Health Advisory Committee to come up with their goals and the missions and goals to put, to help create our community improvement plan. And so this is just an opportunity for communities to be a little bit more specific about the unique characteristics, to get a pulse of their community, to understand their residents a little better, and kind of help inform decisions on how to move forward to cultivate the sense of communities of belonging. So that will be possibly a way that we could support each of you and your communities moving forward, is to help with that. Obviously, it's always best if there could be sort of a shared investment in that, but that's definitely something that we would be interested in doing, and have secured some funding sources to help with that process.
Are there other questions that anyone has, or any of the rest of you that would like to stay engaged with this initiative in a particular community?
It's
Hey,
Jeff.
Pat, this
I'll-
is, oh, go ahead.
sorry.
You
I
go.
was saying I'll be involved from the city of Chaska.
Okay, that's Jeff.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff.
And this is Heather, and we're in the city of Chan, but our nonprofit kind of crosses boundaries within the community. So maybe we need to talk and figure out what that looks like, but we are in Chanhassen. I don't know if anyone else has said interest in that area or in Chanhassen yet.
You're the first one so far, Heather.
Oh,
Great.
and then I
Good
know we want
start.
to be involved with others. Yeah, we got to start.
Very good. Very good.
Yep.
In the chat, Richard Chadwick also indicated that he's from Chanhassen and would like more information. He also works as a part of the Chanhassen Lions group and other Carver County Resilience team members. So,
yeah, and I'm
Very
part of the
good.
Rotary, so I'm Chan Rotary as well. And then our nonprofit can help with other things if we cross counties or across communities. We can help with that.
Very good.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate what Pat was saying earlier, it's surely not our intent to usurp or to overstep any of the other organizations, coalitions, or activities that communities are doing, but how can we also supplement, enhance, cheerlead, amplify some of that work. And again, I always think many hands make light work, right? And I think, and also just, we probably need a variety and a diversity of engagement. And so this allows for those many opportunities for people to get involved and take an active part in improving their community.
Hey, Pat, it's Courtney again. I am not in a position where I can 100% like officially commit to this at this point, but I definitely want to get some more information and potentially bring this to a broader audience. So With that, I'm curious if there's anyone else from Carver who you've connected with or who has demonstrated interest in this.
Courtney, you are also our first one from Carver so far, so
All right.
congratulations. We will definitely keep you in the loop. And again, this is just the beginning. We're hoping to identify 1 or 2 people, and then we'll grow from there. Again, with the community in Cologne, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but it actually started out with 2 people. And they said, let's do this in Cologne. And they just kept asking around amongst different community members and different sectors within the community. Now they have over 30 people involved. So it only takes 1 or 2 to get things started.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mayor Johnson, also, just to let you know, and Pat, I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but Pat actually did a presentation for the Cologne City Council so that they were very much aware of this process, and I reached out to them and surely encouraging them to be a part. And I know that group is also extending an invitation to Commissioner Fahey since he serves that area. So to see how the commissioners could also then be involved in the process as appropriate. It's not required, but it is something we want to be, as broad and inclusive in the different organizations, and obviously be complementary what the city council and the municipalities and townships are hoping to accomplish as we move forward.
Great. That's really, really good to know. Dr. Scott, you of anybody on this call maybe knows as very well that if and when we're interested in having folks come and speak, that we are very eager to reach out and always have guests.
Wonderful.
Very good. Very good.
Pat, I had
Jill,
my
are you-
hand up.
Hand up.
Oh, okay.
So I'm the director of the food shelf in Laconia, but we serve the surrounding areas. So is there an option to kind of be a liaison? So like if Cologne finds that they have a large community of people that are in need of food or services, that they could loop me in, but I would like to focus my time on the Waconia chapter.
Yes, absolutely. And again, going back to the Cologne example, as they decided, well, what do we want to consider as the community of Cologne? They said, well, we think it's more than just the city boundaries of Cologne. And so they said, well, let's start with what we call our fire protection area. In other words, the Cologne Fire Department serves about a 6 square mile area in terms of fire services. So they said, well, let's start with that. So it encompasses a fair amount of neighboring township areas. And of course, if somebody outside that fire protection area wants to be a part of the Cologne communities of belonging, they would be welcome too. So similar, I think, as you said, as you serve the Waconia and surrounding Waconia area, that is perfectly fine. Anyone that considers themselves a part of that quote community certainly would be welcome in my mind, and I'm sure in the minds of the local residents. Jill, are you still on the line? Okay, may have lost Jill.
Pat, if
Anyone else?
Pat, if
ahead,
I may just quickly, Angie, it's nice to see you part of this call. Caitlin did an absolutely beautiful presentation to our Board of Commissioners during their work session this past Tuesday. And one of the areas that she highlighted was your Gather and Grow program. And again, a wonderful example of what we're referring to as sort of midstream solutions. And we're hoping to address solutions across the whole continuum of prevention, from primary or upstream to early intervention, which we call midstream, and then of course downstream, which are more interventions, restoration, rehabilitation, and things of that sort. And so one of the things I didn't get a chance to share is that our communities of belonging is a wonderful example of us trying to integrate that continuum of care with a focus on upstream solutions to address those factors in the community that help create health and prosperity and community engagement. So again, I just wanted to thank you for the work that you've done at Waconia, and also just to let you know that your program was one of the things that was highlighted with the commissioners the other day.
Well, thanks.
Thanks.
I did not know my good friend Caitlin
Caitlin
set me up
set me
that
up
way, but
that
that's
way,
awesome.
but that's
Thank you.
awesome. Thank you.
It's all
It's all
connected.
connected.
Great. Any other final questions? Well, if not, we thank you so much for your time this afternoon and for your interest. We certainly will be following up with all of you very soon, since this is our final introductory session, and see how we can start to get this initiative started in the various communities that you are from or work in. So with that, thank you again. We'll be back in touch with you again very soon. Take care,
Thank you.
everyone. Have a good day.